Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Knowledge Portal video series. And in today's lecture we will be speaking about block versus object storage. So let's get started and have a high level overview regarding the difference between them. Now in very simple terms, in block storage the data is stored in terms of blocks. So let's assume that this is a storage device, for example a hard disk drive. And in terms of block storage, what happens is whenever you install a file system like NTFS or ext3 or ext4, then the file system will actually divide the storage in terms of blocks. So what really happens is the blocks are created. So you see the blocks are getting created, and once the block is created, then the storage is stored in terms of blocks. So I'll show you one of the examples. Let me just log in to one of my server. So this is the server, and if you run the command, it will basically show you on what is the block size of a device which is dev SDA. So if you do a lsblk, I have two devices over here. One is the SDA, which is of size 25 GB, and second is SDB, which is a swap partition. So in this SDA, I have, let me show you. So I have a ext4 based file system, and when you do a block dev, it will show you the block size of this specific storage device. So going back to the PPT, so this file system is divided in terms of 4096 based blocks. So if you have a data of, let's assume 8096 or 8 KB, then you will have two blocks which will be allocated. If you have a 12 KB of data, then there will be three blocks which will be allocated. So it all works based on blocks. Now, one more important thing to remember is that data stored in blocks are normally read or written entirely a whole block at the same time. And most of the file systems that we speak about, like for USB or for Windows, we have NTFS or FAT. For Linux, we have ext4 or XFS. Those file systems all are based on block storage. Now, when we speak about block storage, every block has a specific address, and application can call those specific blocks via a SCSI call via the block address. Now, one more important thing to remember is that there is no storage side metadata associated with a block except the address. So if there is an object or there is a file, let's assume there is a image file which is being stored, there is no metadata. Like just by looking at the block, I cannot determine like what is the file being stored over here. So that is called as the metadata, and it does not also have a description or a owner. So we'll look into what I really mean by a metadata when we talk about object storage. So in an object storage, it is a data storage architecture where the message or where the data is stored as object as opposed to a block of storage. So there are no blocks of data which has been divided. So even if you have, let's assume you have a 10 MB of data, it will be directly stored as an object. There are no blocks which are being present in an object storage. One and a very important point to remember here, that object is defined as a file which is a data along with all of its metadata which is combined together as a specific object. So let me show you this. AWS S3 is type of a object based store. So when I go to AWS S3 and let's open up any bucket. So I have a file which is .png file over here, and if I'll click over here, within the properties you find that there is a metadata which is attached over here. So let's click here and it will show you what is the type of metadata, which is content type, which is image.png. So this metadata basically tells on what exactly the object is all about, whether it is a text file or it is a song or a MP3 file or it is a image file. So this is the metadata which S3 automatically puts when you upload a file. You can also create a custom metadata according to your requirement. So this is also possible. And this is the major difference. So this is what this basically means. What we call as an object in S3 is not only a file, but it is also the metadata which is connected with the specific file. So this file along with all the metadata together creates a object. So that is the second point. And the object ID, which is basically a unique ID associated, will be the combination of the content of the object as well as the metadata. So we'll be looking into this whenever the right time comes, otherwise it will become much complicated. So difference between block storage and object storage, one of the very famous difference I can tell is that object storage can be called via API. So you see, you have a HTTPS based interface. So you can call the object. So if this was a text file, you could actually open this up in the browser via HTTPS. You will see you are actually able to open this up from the browser itself. However, you cannot really do that directly with a block storage. So that is one of the major difference within the object storage as well as the block storage. Now, object storage are not as fast as block storage, but it does have its own importance in the industry. Hey everyone, and welcome back. In today's video, we'll be discussing about the Elastic Block Store, which is also referred as the EBS. Now, AWS Elastic Block Store is a persistent block storage volume for the use of EC2 instance. Now, by persistent, I mean that even if you stop and start your EC2 instances, your data will still remain. Now, in case of the instance store volumes, generally when you stop and start, your data would not persist. So this is the great thing about EBS, and this is the reason why EBS is used in production environments. Now, each EBS volume is designed for more than 99% availability, and the data is automatically replicated within multiple availability zone. So this can be better understood with a diagram over here. So you have the server, you have the virtualization layer, and you have various EC2 instances. Now the EC2 instance will not store the data within the server, because let's say that there are 4 EC2 instances which are running on one server. And if there is an issue with this one server, let's say there's an issue with the hard disk, then the data of all the 4 EC2 instances would either be corrupted or it would be lost. And this is the reason why storing the data on the EC2 instance is never an ideal approach. And the second problem with this approach is that, again, if the hard disk gets corrupted, it is not replicated. So this is the reason why EBS generally is similar to a network attached storage, where these are the, let's say that these are the hard disk drives and they are mounted via network to your EC2 volumes. Now, these devices are replicated among each other. So that means that even if one volume goes down, the data is still present within the multiple volumes which are part of the replication zone. So this is another advantage of EBS, but do remember that although AWS claims that this is the availability and data is replicated, I have seen lot of instances, specifically because I have been working in enterprises where we have thousands of servers, and there are a lot of cases where EBS volumes are facing issue and the data is completely lost. In fact, we had one issue where AWS had sent a mail that there is an issue with the EBS, and our entire production database server went down because of that. So although it is good, but do remember that you should always take the backup of your data within the EBS volume, because even EBS volume can have issues. Anyways, so that is just some real world things that I would like to share. Now, the third important point for EBS is that EBS is elastic in nature and hence it supports dynamic increase in capacity, performance, and can change the instance type of the live volumes. So we'll understand this after the next slide. Now this slide is very important. Do remember that AWS EC2 is regarded as a compute based service. Now compute generally refers to memory and CPU. So if you look into the EC2 pricing or EC2 instance types which are available, you will see that you have the vCPU and you have the memory and you have the storage option where you have EBS only here. So EC2 is a compute which generally refers to a vCPU and the memory. However, storage is different thing altogether. So you have various storage options like EBS, you might have instance store volumes, etc. So let's jump to practical and understand some of these factors in great detail. So I'm in my EC2 console and currently I have one EC2 instance running. Now if you go a bit down, you will see that this EC2 instance has a root device type as EBS and the root device is dev/xvda. So if I just click over here and I can click on the volume ID. So here it is giving me a lot of information like the size of the volume type, the amount of IOPS which is associated. Now, in case if I want to change these factors, I'll be able to do that. So in case you remember, we discussed that EBS can be elastic in nature, which allows it to have a dynamic increase in capacity performance as well. So if I click on modify volume and let's say current volume size is 8 GB and I want to change the instance size to 10 GB, I will be able to do that. Along with that, if I want to change the volume type, let's say I want to change the volume type from GPT to provisioned IOPS, I'll be able to do that as well. So I hope you understood at a high level overview about EBS. Do remember that EBS stays at a separate layer altogether. EBS disks are not included within the server. They are attached to your volumes. So it can be referred as a network attached. So there is a network over here and through the network, the data travels. So let's say that this EC2 instance wants to store certain data. So that data travels via the network to the EBS volumes. And EBS volumes are replicated and they are elastic in nature so that we can increase the EBS volume size, also the capacity and performance.